Luke 12, verse 13 says this, "Then someone called from the crowd, 'Teacher, please tell my brother to divide our father's estate with me.' Jesus replied in verse 14, 'Friend, who made me a judge over you to decide such things as that?' Then he said, 'Beware, guard against every kind of greed. Life is not measured by how much you own.' Then he told them a story." Now, if you've been in church for very long, this story that Jesus is about to tell is probably familiar to you. He said, "A rich man had a fertile farm that produced fine crops. And he said to himself, 'What should I do? I don't have room for all my crops.' Then he said, 'I know, I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones. Then I'll have room enough to store all my wheat and other goods. And I'll sit back and say to myself, my friend, you have enough stored away for years to come. Now take it easy, eat, drink, and be merry.'" Hey, let me just pause. Take a time out there. Before we villainize this dude, how many of you would love to be in that situation? Yeah, wouldn't you? Man, I have so much in my checking account, I literally don't need to work for the next decade of my life. Or I have so much in my checking account, I can retire right now and I don't have to work if I don't want to the rest of my life. How many of you, if you're being honest, would be like, I'll take that. I'll take that for sure. 100%. So we got to be very careful here. This guy has preached time and time again in the wrong way. He's not a bad guy because he had a good crop, right? And he built bigger barns. He saved up so he wouldn't have to work in the future. That's not what makes him bad. That's not. And Jesus says that very clearly, despite what many preachers have done to this text. That's not what Jesus is saying. Let's read it, okay? "But God said to him, 'You fool.'" This is why we get hung up on this. He's a fool, right? But why is he a fool? "You will die this very night. Then who will get everything you worked for?" Yes, a person is a fool to store up earthly wealth, period. Is that what it says? That's not what it says. But not have a rich relationship with God. That's the part that's left out all the time. That's the part that to this day, I have never heard anyone preach in my life. I've never heard a podcast on it. I've never heard a TikTok video on it. I've never heard anyone say that. He's a fool because he stores up wealth and then he dies and loses all of it. That's what I've heard. How many have heard that? That's not what the Bible says. That's not what Jesus said. The Bible said that he was a fool because he did all of that without having a rich relationship with God. So what does he say? Life is not measured by how much you own. Life is not measured that way. Many things are. Many things are measured by what you own, right? But life, Jesus says, is not measured that way. And then he gives this story, right, of the man. And it's also the answer to why the man is a fool. It's not because he stored up wealth, as we said, right, as some have tried to say, but rather this. He did so without a rich relationship towards God. Verse 21 says that. So what does that mean? What does that mean? A rich relationship towards God. All of you know the answer to this. What are relationships built on? What's the foundation of every good, lasting relationship? It's a word. Trust. Trust. Are they built on love? Not really. Is love important? Absolutely. But it doesn't matter how much you love someone if trust is violated. Am I right? Relationships are built on trust. This man was wealthy in this world, but he had never learned to trust God, and therefore he had no real relationship with God. You see, you can accomplish a great deal in this life without walking with God. Did you know that? Absolutely, it's possible. You can build an empire. You can store up and secure your future without knowing Him deeply. But there's one problem in all that. And you might say, but Jerome, listen, the abundance of my things brings me peace. The abundance of my things, they bring me security. Money is reliable. When others leave me, when people fail me, when relationships crumble, when friends stop calling, I still have my money. And you know what I say to that? Fair enough. Fair enough. I think there's a lot of subtle nuance there. It's worth discussion, but you're not totally wrong. at the end of the day. When people leave you, you might very well still have your money. And is it true that the more money you have, the more comfort you can afford in this life? Absolutely. That's true. You're fool to deny it otherwise. Is it true that the more money you have in this life, the more experiences you can have? Doesn't it afford you more opportunity than it does that have less? Absolutely it does. I believe Jesus Christ himself would say, yeah, in this world, you're absolutely right. But there's one problem with that. What happens when life runs out? What then? What happens when life leaves you? And that's the big problem. What do we have then? And now we know why Jesus says life is not measured in what you own.